also stand here. You can also stand here if you want to. We've got those beautiful things, if the light follows us. Haley, you work on the climate literacy report. Maybe we can start it off with you actually explaining to us what that is.
Absolutely. So the Climate Literacy Guide actually was published first in 2008. It was quickly revised and released again in 2009. And it's about a 20-page document that covers what are the essential principles that everyone needs to know about climate science. So it's been 14 years. A lot has happened in climate change and the developing climate crisis. We know we need more than just science to really address it. So there's a group of of 20 agencies across the US federal government that is undertaking an update to the Climate Literacy Guide. Now we're calling it the Toolkit because it's more than just climate science. So part of that is the skills and abilities that we need to develop in order to really address, what's going on and build a better future.
So there I was going to ask, what does it have to do with the IDGs? I feel like it's already going into this direction. Maybe you can just give us that story of how that connects to the IDGs.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually approached this knowing nothing about the IDGs. We never heard of it. We actually developed it was sort of a convergent evolution. We had almost exactly the same question. We went out and talked to over 750 people in the US and around the world. And we just asked, what does everyone need to know? And what does everyone need to be able to do to address the climate crisis? Which, if you're familiar with the one-question survey, probably sounds pretty familiar. And we were expecting things like, you need to know about solar panels, you need to know about, carbon drawdown, that kind of stuff. But really what we heard was empathy and hope and justice and systems thinking, and these things that we didn't really have a framework for coming from a scientific place. So we went out to see, who had already put this into a framework and could contextualize this. And what we found was the IDGs. So we're so glad that this kind of partnership is working. You got a little preview before, but this is how we are presenting the IDGs in relation to SDG 13, which is climate action. So we have sort of something happened. We have a sort of infinity symbol, but it's the same IDGs. We have the same concepts as well. And all of this is a draft, so be prepared, it might change, but I can actually show you an example of what the IDGs are gonna look like, hopefully, in our framework. Again, it's a draft. But you can see here we have the critical thinking skill, for example, which has the text from the IDGs, and then we put in a way to develop that skill in the context of climate, and then a way to demonstrate that skill. Total examples, they're meant to be very broad, but just to get people thinking about the IDGs in the context of climate. And this guide hopefully will be useful for educators, communicators, and decision makers are really who we're creating it for. So that's what hopefully it'll look like, so keep an eye out.
I mean, for us, this is like an ideal example of also how we want the IDGs to be used to really be of use in the sustainability field. So maybe you can just tell us a bit more about who this is actually going out to, just so we understand the scale of it.
Absolutely. So the last guide, for example, it was included in national education frameworks. Lots of states used it for their education systems. It was the basis of many museum exhibits. It was translated into at least 6 other languages. We did English and Spanish. So it really had a life of its own around the world. And we hear from people, all over Europe and Africa and Asia who are telling us about how they're using it. We wrote it really with the US context in mind. So this time, what we're doing is writing it with that international context. So we're hoping that beyond just education, it can be useful for the media and for, climate influencers online, or for government officials to really get a foundation in climate change and what types of skills and abilities that they might want to cultivate or, promote the cultivation of in their publics.
Amazing. And when are we expecting this climate literacy report to go out?
So everyone cross your fingers. We're hoping that it will come out either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So we'll have a skills and abilities framework, we'll have the knowledge framework, and then some other guides that will come out with associated curricula, so that you can teach it in schools and different classes. Hopefully that will be added to our website in the next year or so. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I feel like you have a lot of new readers here. Thank you so much for bringing this example to stage, and all the best. And we're really looking forward to reading the Climate Literacy Report. Thank you so much, Haley Crim.